Good afternoon. My name is Derek Forward. I am the president of the Dayton Unit NAACP, and that's DERRICK. L is my middle initial, FOWARD, President, Dayton Unit NAACP. And we're going to have 4 people speaking here today. It's going to be myself, the city manager, chief of police of Huber Heights, city manager of Huber Heights, chief of police of Huber Heights, and the mayor of Huber Heights. So before we get started, if you can state your name and how you spell it, a lot of times that's how they want it. So if you want to go do that first. Yep.
Jeff Gore, Jeffgore, and I am the mayor of Huber Heights.
Rob Schomer, SCHOMMER, city manager of Huber Heights.
Mark Leitner, LIGHTNER, the chief of police, city of Huber Heights.
Thank you. We are in some challenging times and some challenging days, and we just want to come together as a collective community. You know, the Dayton Unit NAACP, our territory covers everything inside of Montgomery County, Ohio. So any city or township that's located in Montgomery County, Ohio, that is our jurisdiction. So we are collectively aware of the organized, peaceful protests scheduled to occur within Huber Heights. The city and the Dayton Unit NAACP supports and stand with these efforts and want to make sure those who peacefully protest have their voices heard. You know, unfortunately, I was in Atlanta, Georgia last weekend when all HELL broke loose, and but I did have an opportunity while I was down there in Georgia to actually help the churches and things like that clean up the destruction that took place down in Atlanta, downtown Atlanta, near the CNN building. For that reason, violent protest troublemakers who disrupt and endanger participants of the peaceful protest will be dispersed, apprehended, and charged to the fullest extent of the law. We just want to make certain that we make that very clear, that we want this to be a very peaceful protest. We are the Dayton Unit NAACP has been long advocates for to ensure that everyone's civil and human rights are maintained and that and secured. So the First Amendment right gives people the right to the right to protest, the right to assemble. So we want to make certain that those rights are given. There is no legitimate reason or need to endanger lives, destroy property, or commit any other type of crime in order to successfully protest. Any damage to property, threats to the rights of peaceful protesters, or other civil disorder is a crime and not a protest. So what I'm saying there is simply that if we're going to protest on Saturday in Huber Heights, let's just make certain that it's done decently and in order. And that's your right. I support you as the president of the NAACP. The city supports you as the city leadership of the city of Huber Heights. And we're in this together. None of us like what we saw with a police officer's knee on the neck of a black man. Nobody likes that, and that's why there is a worldwide cry, for what took place a week or so ago. So that was totally wrong. I'm glad to see that the person in charge of the investigation has charged all 4 officers with a crime, upgraded it on the first officer who actually had the knee. And I'm ashamed that I bear his name and we bear each other's name of Derek. Because that's not what Derek stands for. Derek stands for strong, resilient. Derek stands for leader. And he definitely was not showing leadership or exercising leadership as a law enforcement officer. More importantly, we urge all citizens to wear a mask and to practice social distancing during the protests, as we are still in the middle of a pandemic, which can be fatal. So as you see, I do have my mask. I wear my mask everywhere I go. I oftentimes also have my gloves, but that's something that we need to do every day until there is a cure. The NAACP are strong advocates for healthcare equity and want to ensure that all protesters remain healthy and safe. That's our number one priority. One of our number one priorities is to ensure healthcare equity amongst all Americans. That's one of our 21st century game changers that all 2,200 units across this nation has been charged with, and that's to ensure healthcare equity for all. We will be conducting a voter registration drive at the protests, so the voices of all protesters can be felt at the polls on November 3rd, 2020. City Manager?
Sure. Very good. As Dr. Forward said, this is interesting times, and although it poses some challenges, I'm certain that this region, the communities in this region, Huber Heights specifically, has the opportunity to come together. And as Derek said, we are on this together. So, looking at this from a city approach and planning approach, we recognize and we respect all the rights of our residents and our visitors. And we also recognize and respect the responsibility to protect those rights, including property, including lives, including the safety of all those in our community, as well as maintaining the peace and good order within the community. We'll remain focused on upholding our laws and the Constitution, as well as protecting our residents and visitors to provide their safety and also a high quality of life. Now, with those focuses, we do that and accomplish it through concurrence, not in contradiction. So all the while upholding constitutional rights, we are also protecting the rights of others. And we want to make sure that those that choose to speak out, their voice can be adequately heard rather than muffled through a bunch of noise of a bunch of troublemakers coming in. We'll remain focused on protecting the safety and rights of peaceful protesters and the peace and good order of our community in order to support and stand with those whose voices desperately need to be heard.
Mayor?
Yes, so first I would just say there's nothing at all that Derek and Rob have said that I would disagree with. These are challenging times, and during challenging times in adversity, that's when we stand up for what we believe in, and I believe that's what we're doing here in allowing everyone to be heard who needs to be heard. So saying that, we are proud to continually coordinate our civil rights support with the Dayton Unit NAACP. We believe the entire purpose of a peaceful and meaningful protest is to bring awareness and a coming together of people, not to incite more violence and property damage. I believe that government's most important and fundamental job is to protect the rights of each and every individual. And the right to free speech and assembly are at the core of a free people in a free society. And we support that 100% in Huber Heights. We're confident that through our relationship with our diverse community, and Huber Heights is a very diverse community, and we celebrate that, that with the leadership organizations like the NAACP, that our community, we will lead and will prevail in contributing to getting those voices heard and help make the needed changes. And we support the NAACP and any voter registration drive and things that you all are going to do. We support that 100%. And we appreciate you inviting and having us here today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief?
First off, I do want to thank you, Dr. Forward, for letting us come here and speak with you on this topic. We at the Police Division have no reason to believe that the organizers of this event are going to do nothing but have a peaceful sit-down protest. The organizer has been very responsible to make that clear, that that is what they want. And as everyone here has spoke of, our role at the police department is to express their rights and to make sure they have the ability to do so peacefully and safely. We will not allow anyone to take away from that importance of allowing the citizens to express their rights. And we will not want to take away from the importance of the true message of the protest, which is to continue working toward a cure for this and all the other social injustices. Thank you.
I just want to say, and you add one more thing, and then we can open up for whatever questions that you may have. And that is, on behalf of the entire body of the Dayton unit of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, we send our heartfelt condolences to the family of George Floyd. It's just an unspeakable act to watch a man die on television. That's something that really hit the hearts of the world. To see a man die crying out for his mother on national television. That's what I went to do last weekend, was to go and pay a surprise visit to my mother. Last weekend when all this broke loose last weekend, I went to go pay a surprise visit to my mother. And to learn that a man was, and to see it being replayed and replayed and replayed on television, to see a man cry for his mother, who was already deceased. That lets you know how the anguish that this man felt. Pain, suffering. So, to his family, our entire body of the NAACP, our entire city, our county, which we are part of the fabric of Montgomery County, we send our heartfelt condolences.
Very well stated. Thank you.
I have a
Yes.
question. Mr. Forward, just seeing on social media, Facebook, everything, some people are questioning, with the arrest of the other officers, why protests are still happening. Kind of just speak to why this movement is continuing.
Well, the movement will continue. I'm just going to be honest with you. And I've said it in the past 2 interviews I did in the past couple of days. People want to be able to see this whole process through. Number one, a man has died. Number two, it took days to bring the first person who had the knee on his neck, into custody. It took additional days to bring the other 3 officers into custody. They have been charged. They have not been convicted. So until there is a conviction, I believe, and this is just me thinking, I have the slightest idea, this is just me thinking, until there is a conviction in America, in the world, hearing the word guilty as charged, I believe there will still be movements up until that time. So I hope and pray that the prosecutors conduct a full, thorough, investigation, have their ducks in a row, as they've been saying, get the convictions that everyone is longing for. And once they get those convictions, then I think the souls of America will rest a little. And when you say, well, Mr. Forward, why do you say a little? Oftentimes, what we hear throughout the world when it comes to law enforcement in the community is we hear the words, no indictment. And those words register at the core of a black man, of a black woman. No indictment, time after time after time. And in some cases, even with video. So that's the scary part. Even with video, there has been no indictments. So that's the reason why the soul of this world will continue to protest until the word guilty is given and handed down to each one of the officers that took part of this heinous act of violence.
City leaders, mayor,
Yes.
Any idea of a potential curfew, or how will you decide that? And will you?
Yes.
Yeah, there's no plans of a curfew at this time. But I think I would leave the decision making on what that would look like if there's a need to get one or establish one based on the events and what happens. But I think that would certainly be more of a strategic decision, which would come down to the police chief. I certainly would consult with him about that. But as of right now, there's not a planned curfew, because as the chief said, we don't have any reason to believe that this is not going to be a peaceful protest, as we've spoken to the organizer, and we believe that's how it's going to play out.
And how will you let the community know when that decision, if that decision changes?
I think a lot of people would be paying attention to what's going on, and I would say at the first sign of any kind of violence, we would make that decision. We would make announcements through news agencies, through social media agencies, and things like that, as a way to do that. I don't know if there's any other comment that you might have, Rob or Chief. We would certainly consult one another. But,
No, absolutely. We just use every media outlet possible to get the news, to get the word out.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any idea how many people? I know it's days out, and people show up without any indication beforehand. But any idea how many people you're expecting to turn out for this?
Well, I have zero expectation because I don't know who's organizing it. So I guess the way I look at it, it's always the safest bet just to be prepared, and I believe that's what law enforcement and city leadership is doing. Is they're being prepared. But I just want to probably leave you with this, and that is, if when it comes down to, see, my father was a law enforcement officer as well, so that's why I support wholeheartedly our law enforcement agencies that's across this nation. So when I think about my father and think about whether or not my late father, he's deceased now, but if he was going to come home at night, it's a tough feeling for a child, a spouse, a loved one to really think about that. But at the same time, my father was a good officer. My father was engaged in the community. My father got out and walked and talked and spoke to the citizens. I remember I used to always wait and couldn't wait till he got home because his partner, McKeever, would always bring me a bag of popcorn. And it was those kind of relationships that I think that we need to get back to as a society in terms of law enforcement and citizens. But also on the other side, when we get down to the judicial system, we need to ensure that people are held accountable, whether or not they're civilians or law enforcement. And if it isn't right, you must indict. And that's what I say. If it isn't right, you must indict, civilian or law enforcement.